1860, there was a 40-year-old grocer who lived outside of Manassas, Virginia, named Wilmer McLean. And if you're looking for a baby name, Wilmer. You can't get better than Wilmer, right? So this guy named Wilmer McLean, he lives on this property outside Manassas, and it's this beautiful rolling green hill property, and he would often sit out on his front porch and watch the slowly trickling little river come through that was known as the River of Bull Run. So we got this guy, Wilmer McLean, and he's living out there, 1860. And by December of that year, the North and South began to have a lot of tension, and the southern states began to secede from the Union of the United States, and there began to be rumors of war. Rumors of war swirled around every small town in the United States, North and South, until July 21st of 1861, the war broke out. But Wilmer found out in a really unique way. Wilmer did not find out about the Civil War's beginning by reading the newspaper. He didn't find out about the beginning of the Civil War by a friend. No, instead, this is how he found out about the beginning of the Civil War. He was later quoted saying, "The war began in my front yard." And he was right. The entire Civil War began with the Battle of Bull Run, a war that was begun right in the front yard of Wilmer McLean. You see, there was a war raging, there was a battle raging, and one morning he came down from his upstairs room to find out, oh, I didn't know, there it is. The war has begun. There was the war, and he did not even know it was happening. The Bible talks about a war, a spiritual war. A spiritual war of cosmic conflict, a spiritual war between heaven and hell, God and Satan. But often, we don't even know that this war is being waged. Often, it's going on in our front yard, and we don't even know that the war is going on, that we are involved in a battle every single day in this cosmic conflict. And so the question is if we will be aware of it, or if, like Wilmer, we will walk down one morning and realize that we weren't even aware of the war that was being waged in the spiritual realm all around us. This is what our story is all about today. And it's a story that begins in Mark chapter 5, verse 1. Here's the first 5 verses. We read that's Jesus and all of his followers. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons from his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. So here's the first really obvious thing in this story, and it's something that often makes people today uncomfortable. What's obvious in the story is that demons exist. It's a story of a demon-possessed man. Demons are real. This is what the Bible is saying. There's a demon-possessed man, and he's at the edge of this town, and he's screaming. He can't be contained, and he's yelling out, and he's hurting himself. Now, in the first section of Mark is 16 chapters, and the first 8 chapters are this section about Jesus' ministry. And those first 8 chapters, in 5 of them, we either read a story about a demon or we hear a discussion about a demon. So 5 out of the first 8 chapters, there's a focus on demons, which makes us kind of uncomfortable today because most people don't believe that demons even exist today. In fact, YouGov did a study and they found that only about 43% of American adults believe that demons are real. And so this story can feel uncomfortable to us. It can feel maybe silly to you if you don't believe that demons are real, and that's what's happening in this story. Or at least, I think for a lot of us, it could feel like, what does a story about a demon have to do with us? That feels so foreign to me right now in 21st century modern America. But the question is this story really that unfamiliar to us? Are we not familiar with our world dehumanizing those who we push to the edge of society, just like this man? Are we in modern America really not familiar with the darkness of self-harm? Are we in modern America really not familiar with encampments in our cities where people stumble, screaming in an altered state of mind? And don't you think in all these instances that Satan is at least cheering on this sort of darkness? See, we read this story and we think, oh, what does a story about a demon-possessed man have to do with us in modern America? Are we really not so unfamiliar with this? The darkness demons and Satan bring is at work in our society too. It just looks a little different today, right? And we must notice it. Demons are real, Satan is real, and the war that is waging between God and Satan is real. Don't ignore that a war is being waged. That a war is being waged between God and darkness, a spiritual war. A spiritual war that is happening in the invisible realm, in the spiritual realm. Now, the world will tell you, only believe things that you can see and touch, right? And so you might think, oh, this is silly. What do you mean a war that's being waged in the invisible spiritual realm? There is no such thing as the invisible realm. You don't believe that. Even if you don't believe in God at all, you do believe in the spiritual realm. You do believe in an invisible realm, at least. Right now, bouncing through this room are Wi-Fi waves. I don't even know what Wi-Fi is, right? But it's invisible. I can't see it. But it's allowing you to look at cat memes right now as I'm talking, right? Or you're missing your 17th spam call of the week, right? All because of this invisible signal that's bouncing around the room. So you already believe, you know that invisible worlds are possible. And you know that just because something is invisible does not make it any less real. So don't get tricked into thinking because you can't see or touch the spiritual realm in which this war is being waged that it can't be real. You already believe in invisible realms. Just like Wi-Fi, there is another invisible world around us. Two kingdoms at war in a spiritual realm. Satan and his demons versus God and his angels. C.S. Lewis once put the battle this way. He said, there is no neutral ground in the universe. Every square inch, every split second is claimed by God and counterclaimed by Satan. It's real. It's real. Now, if you are an intelligent person, and of course you are, right? Then your question is, well, then why don't I see this? Why don't I see kind of this exact same thing if the spiritual realm is real? Why don't I see it like this in this story right now in my life every day? And to that question, I would answer like this. The greatest trick that Satan ever played is to try to convince you he is not real. Because if Satan can convince you he is not real, he can convince you that the spiritual realm is not real. And if he can convince you of that, he can convince you that God is not real and Jesus is not his son. And so if you are not convinced that Satan is real, the demons are real, then the trick is working. And I would highly encourage you to go travel to some third world countries, and you will have that illusion shattered quite quickly. Do not ignore that a war is being waged. Today we live in a society where darkness is redefining evil as good and good as evil. Satan, the great deceiver, is at war. And if we cannot even recognize that a battle is being fought, how in the world are we going to win? We must be ready for it. As we're told in 1 Peter 5:8, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Now, we also have to avoid two unhealthy extremes. On one side, we do not want to be fixated with darkness. That is not healthy, right? Have you ever met the person that everything that happens in life, Satan did it? Have you ever met them, right? Like any struggle they go through, any bad challenge, anything, it's always like Satan's fault. And any character flaw, that's not from them, of course, is a demon, right? We don't want to do that, okay? We don't want to be fixated on darkness. That's really unhealthy. But we also don't want to ignore it and pretend like it does not exist and be ignorant to it. We want to avoid both extremes. As C.S. Lewis also once wrote, you can give the devil too much or too little attention. You can give the devil too much or too little attention. Don't ignore that a war is being waged. So, what happens when Jesus crosses paths with this demon-possessed man and a battle's going to be waged? What happens? Verse 6. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Now, this is very interesting because Mark chapter 4 ends with the story of Jesus supernaturally calming this storm, right? And at the end of that story, the last verse in the previous chapter, the disciples ask a question that shows they're kind of clueless to who Jesus really is at this point in the story. They ask in Mark 4:41, "Who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him." So the disciples, they don't know who Jesus is yet. They haven't figured it out. They say, "Who is this?" And you're supposed to catch the irony that in the very next chapter, Mark chapter 5 starts with a story where the demons answer the question the disciples were still not able to solve. Isn't that wild? And what do the demons say? What do they call Jesus? Well, in verse 7, they call him the Son of the Most High. Now that is shocking. You're telling me demons have some decent theology? Well, Jesus' own brother in James said in James 2:19, "You believe there is one God, good. Even the demons believe that and shudder." Yeah, guess what? Demons don't sit around in hell all day wondering and arguing about whether God exists. They know. And they even know that Jesus is his son. So maybe a simple intellectual agreement that God exists is not enough to be on the right side of this cosmic conflict. As A.W. Tozer once put it, the devil is a better theologian than any of us and is still a devil. But you can see the struggle that's taking place in the man. You can see the demons in him that are screaming and crying out at Jesus, but then you can also see the man trying to work through it, and he falls at Jesus' feet in faith. And so you can see this spiritual struggle going on even just inside of him. So verse 9 and 10 we read, "Then Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' 'My name is Legion,' he replied, 'for we are many.' And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area." Now, the word legion is a very intentional choice. A legion was the largest grouping or the largest category for a group in the Roman army. That is what the word came from. Now, in the Roman army, it was 6,000 different soldiers. And so this word is being chosen because even the demons know what's happening here. There is a war going on. There's a battle being fought. And they are a part of this warfare. They're even using military language. Verse 11. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs. Allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went to the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank and into the lake and were drowned. Now, I get living in 21st century America. Some of us have a problem with this part because the pigs die. And maybe you like cute little piggies and you've never eaten bacon in your life. It's delicious, by the way. And so you're like, did Jesus kill the pigs here? And that kind of becomes a worry. Notice he doesn't. He doesn't do that. It's the demons that go out they just merely ask him permission to leave. Jesus is not the one who does that. But this battle scene is fascinating. Jesus, just one man, just all alone, Jesus is going toe-to-toe with thousands of demons. And so you think you're about to watch this massive, struggle between Jesus and these thousands of demons, and who's going to win, and they're going to fight it out, and there's going to be this big battle and this clash of armies, and then it's over in a blink of an eye. Why? Because Jesus had absolute authority over them. Absolute authority. They had nothing on him. It didn't matter if there were 10 billion demons, he was going to win that day all alone. Even they know this, which is why they ask him permission, right? Even the demons recognize his authority over them. Now, one of the primary mistakes that we make today about God and Satan, demons and angels, is that they're two equal opposites, right? It's like the yin to the yang. Or for you Star Wars fans, it's the two sides of the force. This is kind of what we think, right? That's not it at all. Jesus has authority. Jesus wins the war. Look at this scene. He wins with just a word. Just a word. Jesus wins the war, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Now, I get that in the spiritual war that we're fighting, it can feel at times temporarily like we're losing. Like maybe you're going up against a habitual sin in your life, and just every day you're like, oh, I can't get away from it. Or maybe you're head to head and you're going up against depression right now, and you just can't push through it and see the other side. Or maybe you're going through addiction, and man, you just can't push through it, and it feels like the darkness is winning within. I get that, but remember, Jesus wins. So we must take up his weapons and fight in this war. As we're told in 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3-5, though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. The devil's greatest weapon is deception. That's why Scripture over and over again calls him the father of lies, which means that our greatest weapon in this spiritual warfare is truth. As it's said here, the knowledge of God, right? That's why we have to take every thought captive, to ask the Holy Spirit to help us with the true knowledge that God gives us. We are in a war Jesus is winning, but we need to fight with the truth. We need to fight with the truth. As Charles Spurgeon once said, the trumpet still plays the notes of war. You cannot sit down and put the victory wreath on your head. We do not have a crown yet. You still must wear the helmet and carry the sword. You must watch, pray, and fight. Expect your last battle to be the most difficult, for the enemy's fiercest charge is reserved for the end of the day. Jesus wins the war, and it's not even close. But we need to be ready for that battle, and our weapon is truth. Jesus wins the war. Okay, so the battle's over. Jesus has gone toe-to-toe with the demons, and he has won. But the passage isn't over. It's very interesting what happens from here. Verse 14, those tending to the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by a legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Why would they do that? They do a miracle and like, get out of here. Why are they doing that? Well, it's actually kind of simple. The people are more afraid of this man being sane than insane. And here's why. Because they've known for years that this guy is the crazy guy outside town that's possessed by a demon. They know that they've sent out like the biggest 10 guys in town to try to get him down and put chains on him. They've over and over seen them, him overcome those guys. And so you're talking somebody can stroll into town after all that and just with a word heal this guy? They don't know who Jesus is, but they know he's powerful enough to fear. Verse 18. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how much he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. Wait a second, that is super strange. I thought the beginning of Mark is about Jesus gathering around this merry band of misfits and getting this group of guys that are going to follow him everywhere. Wouldn't this be a great story? Hey, this is Peter, this is James. Oh, and this is the demon-possessed guy. Right? That would be a great story to be a part of the disciples. But Jesus actually goes, no. The guy begs to join the team, and Jesus is like, no, you can't join. Why? Well, the battle is won, but the war isn't over, and Jesus has a very specific mission for this man to take on. Now, notice Jesus' grace. Notice that there is nothing this man does to be redeemed by Jesus. There's nothing he does to be delivered. It's just grace. The man just falls at Jesus' feet in faith. That's all he does, and it's enough for Jesus to work with because all Jesus needs is our faith to give us his grace. It's Jesus, nothing that we do. It's enough. Jesus saves him, and it's all grace. 1 John 5, 4-5 tells us, everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. Who is it that overcomes the world? Only the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. You want to know how to overcome the world? You want to overcome darkness? It's faith. It's belief. It's faith in Jesus' grace. It's faith that Jesus will have victory in the war and in this battle. So what's the mission that Jesus gives this man next? Because he had just said, no, you can't join this group because I got a mission for you. So what is this mission? Well, he says, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you. Meaning, you just got to witness a win in the spiritual battle. You just got to witness a win in this war. It's time for you to go tell some people. It's time for you to bring the message of this victory to people. You have a war story, and you need to go tell it. You need to go tell people about it. That's why you can't just join us right now. I got something different for you. You need to go tell people about what's happening. You need to go tell people about me. That's what Jesus is saying to this man. That's why he doesn't get to follow Jesus as one of his 12 disciples. In the year 490 BC, the Greek army defeated the Persians at the epic battle of Marathon. A guy named Phidippides, also a great name if you're looking for a baby name. Phidippides ran the 26.2 miles back to the city of Athens just to deliver this message of victory. That's why we still have a race today called the Marathon that is 26.2 miles that looks to me like absolute torture, right? So yeah, right? My wife says, I don't understand it. So he runs back and he's so exhausted he's about to die. He's about to die of exhaustion. And he says two words in Greek, kariti no kaimen. And what he meant was, hail, we win. Then he dies, right? Hail, we win. This is what we are to do. We share the story. Jesus wins. Jesus wins. It's as simple as that. This is what Jesus sends us out to do. Just like Phidippides running into Athens saying, we win. Just like this demon-possessed man, instead of becoming one of the 12 disciples, he runs into town. He's like, Jesus won. I had a demon. But Jesus defeated the demon. Isn't this amazing? Just like the mission of those two was to bring a message. Our mission is to bring a message of Jesus' victory, to bring that message to others, to tell the story that, yes, sin and darkness has separated us from God in this life and the next. But Jesus became one of us to wage war on that sin, on that darkness, and on that death. He defeated darkness. He defeated death. He defeated sin when he hung on the cross and died, and when he rose from the grave 3 days later on Easter. The battle is won. And all you have to do to get in on the victory is to have faith. It's to have faith in Jesus. There's no way you can earn it. It is all grace. Have faith in Jesus, and then go share the story. Share the war story. Jesus wins. Jesus wins. In April of 1865, the Civil War was coming to a grinding end. After years of battle and so much bloodshed, it was finally coming to an end. Wilmer, from our earlier story, Wilmer, he had moved. He had moved away from Manassas to a different town called Appomattox. And he's over there, and he's in Appomattox, and the war is coming to this end. And so this military officer, he comes through Appomattox because they had decided that this is where they were going to do the peace treaty. And they needed a home for Robert E. Lee, the Southern leader, and Ulysses S. Grant, the Northern leader, to meet, to sign the peace agreement, to have peace talks, and to end this war and this battle that they had been in all of these years. And so this military officer, he gets on his horse and he's going through town and he's looking in Appomattox for someone's home to have these peace talks. And he knocks on the door, and guess who opens the door? Wilmer. It's one of the most ironic things in U.S. history. Wilmer opens the door, and at first he puts up a fight. He's like, oh, no. But eventually he allows them to utilize his home for the peace talks to happen and for the war to end. And so the whole quote by Wilmer McLean actually goes like this: "The war began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor." And he was right. The war began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor. And he was right. But there's a dark twist in Wilmer's story. You see, Wilmer realized he was not on the right side of the war. Wilmer was actually a Confederate who had owned slaves, and so he was participating in the atrocious evil that the war had been fought to end. What was actually evil, he was thinking of as good. He caught himself right in the middle. I mean, at the beginning and end of a war where he was on the wrong side. And in the days following this, he lost just about everything. Don't be on the wrong side of the cosmic conflict. There's a war being waged today, a war in a spiritual realm, in an invisible realm you cannot see with your eyes, you cannot touch with your hands. A war that is being waged between God and Satan, heaven and hell, darkness and light. This war is happening all around you. Even if you don't know it, even if you're not aware of it, it's happening even right in your front yard. But what you don't want to do is walk down your stairs one day and realize that you've been on the wrong side of the battle all along. What you don't want to do is realize that what you've been calling good is actually evil. And so if you're someone who would say, I've never really put my faith in Jesus, I've never really thought about that, I've never had faith in him, then I just want to urge you, Jesus came and he died for you to defeat that darkness, to defeat that death, and the only thing that you have to do to get in on that victory is faith in him. But what you don't want to do is find yourself on the wrong side. Don't be on the wrong side of the cosmic conflict. And for those of us who we have faith in Jesus, maybe we've been following Jesus for a week or like 5 decades. For us, if we believe this, it should give us a passion to go out and share the story, right? If we actually believe that here and now, as the Bible teaches, that there is a spiritual war being waged, spiritual war being waged for the eternal souls of men and women and children, then should we not go out with the weapon of truth and fight and share the story of Jesus and his coming and his death and his resurrection and his love and grace? Should we not be sharing that? Don't be on the wrong side of the cosmic conflict.